diehards as much as possible.
Tonight, a local sheriff says he's opening up a new investigation looking into his warden.
Yeah, the investigation begins hours after we interviewed the sheriff and warden about possible special treatment and illegal activity involving a former inmate. Killed a teenager named Teresa Mohon. A short walk from the front door of this home is a grave for a young girl whose life ended way too early.
I don't want her to be forgotten.
Melissa Mohon makes that walk every day to the front yard of her Washington Parish home to visit her daughter, Teresa Mohon, who died at the age of 16.
Now it's almost like I'm still kind of taking care of them in a way.
Melissa Mohon says her daughter was a typical teenager.
She was full of life, full of mischief.
And full of love.
Yes, and if you were in trouble or the underdog, she was your champion.
Teresa Mohon's life was cut short in September of 2009.
I remember just standing there crying and screaming.
Mohon was killed in a car accident in St. Tammany Parish.
Angry isn't even a sufficient word.
Killed by Troy Valentine, who was out of jail at the time, but allegedly on drugs when driving and killing Teresa.
And I blame them.
You blame who?
St. John the Baptist Parish.
Mohon blames St. John Parish for her daughter's death because that's where Valentine spent much of his adult life incarcerated. He's been arrested 36 times in St. John Parish. Take a look at his rap sheet filled with drug, burglary, trespassing charges.
And I don't know how the sheriff can sleep at night. And if he did this with Troy Valentine, how many other Troys are there out there running around?
In 2005, Troy Valentine was still in custody of St. John Parish, but taking part in a work release program, working in Plaquemines Parish. Valentine escaped from that work release program. St. John deputies tracked him down and booked him with escape. Those charges, though, were refused, dismissed from prosecution. Valentine never had any time added to his sentence. He was released in December of 2006.
If he's found guilty on that, that would be an additional 5 years to his sentence. For some reason, they chose...
If he's found guilty of the simple escape, that's another 5 years on his sentence.
On his sentence, okay, so he would have been incarcerated another 5 years here.
If found guilty, Troy Valentine would have never been in a car that September night when he hit and killed Teresa Mohon.
Should Troy Valentine, because of the amount of arrests that he had, serve more time? I would say that is without question, yes. Is that disappointing and frustrating to me? It is.
But we've uncovered evidence that raises the question, did Troy Valentine receive preferential treatment in St. John Parish that allowed him to get out of jail and kill Teresa Mohon? Here's a document the sheriff's office failed to give us. A source did. It's a statement given by sheriff's deputies after Valentine's escape arrest, where Valentine admitted to doing personal work for St. John Parish warden Philip Hebert while he was in custody. That's against state law. When we showed up to interview the sheriff, the warden was there, unannounced, and sat near the sheriff during the interview. Valentine did work for Warden Hebert.
Totally false.
Totally false.
There was, at the time that happened, Mr. Zurich, I was at the conference with the sheriff.
At the time the escape happened.
Right.
I'm not talking. He didn't admit to doing it on the escape. I'm talking about over time. He says he did.
Totally false.
In a statement, an officer said Valentine and others said it was common knowledge someone would come pick up Troy so he could do work for the warden. You're telling me that you are not aware at all that Troy Valentine has said that he's done work for an employee of yours?
Not at all.
After a few minutes of pressing the sheriff on this, the warden stepped in again.
I think we're getting off track with the sheriff. I mean, I don't understand what Mr. Zurich is looking for, what he's trying to do.
So you believe your warden that he did no work for him?
Yeah, I wouldn't think, yeah. I believe my warden on that.
But we talked to Valentine's sister by phone, and she said, in fact, Troy did do work for Warden Philip Hebert, saying Troy changed the AC unit at Philip's house. Valentine's sister says Troy even lied once to cover up for the warden because she says the two families are very close, saying the warden and Troy were good friends, really good friends. In the Sheriff's Department document that we received from a source, it stated during that work release program, the company Valentine worked for ordered parts for the warden's house and later tried to bill the warden for it so it wouldn't look like a malfeasance in office.
Did you ask Deltona Electric to order some parts or something for your house?
No.
In St. Bernard?
No, sir, that's incorrect.
They didn't order anything, or you didn't ask them to, or
Not to me, sir. No, sir.
so it wouldn't look like a malfeasance in office.
But the owner of the company did confirm to us parts were ordered for the warden's St. Bernard Parish home. The warden says all of these allegations were brought up in an internal affairs investigation, and he was found innocent.
There's an investigation opened up by your internal affairs division. How do you tell me, Sheriff, that you weren't aware that?
In other words, if they handling that, they're going to give me the end result of it.
So you weren't, but you just told me you weren't aware that anyone, even that Valentine claimed to have done work for an employee.
I don't think the chief was aware of. I don't know if the chief advised the sheriff of what exactly happened, maybe.
I mean, I don't get into the end result, so I don't have any knowledge of that.
The warden says that report clears him.
I can get the document to you, sir. I'll give you the complete investigative file. The polygraphs were done. Everything was documented.
4 days after this interview, we still haven't received that information. But there's more. Valentine was released from prison in December of 2006 since he wasn't prosecuted for the escape. 4 months later, he made a campaign contribution to the sheriff.
I was not aware of the donation until you're telling me that now, but I don't like it. I tell you that. I don't like it at all.
The sheriff says the criminal justice system, not the sheriff, failed here.
So who dropped the ball?
It certainly wasn't the sheriff's office.
So who dropped the ball?
I think you just said who dropped the ball.
The DA?
I would say the DA, we needed to, I think, I would like an explanation on why he wasn't prosecuted on the simple escape.
And during the interview, the sheriff gave us proof that he says helped show the DA refused the charges on the escape.
I do have the documentation that I'm going to supply you with that the district attorneys at that time declined prosecution.
This document shows that David Lozano from the DA's office signed off on dismissing the charges. But get this, the current district attorney told us by email, Major David Lozano is employed by the sheriff's office, assigned to the district attorney's office as an investigator. He is paid by the sheriff's office. And the DA said, as the chief investigator, David Lozano often participates in screening decisions. So the person signing off and refusing the charges against Troy Valentine for the escape is actually employed and paid by the sheriff. Records show David Lozano is also a campaign contributor to Sheriff Wayne Jones.
Did he get preferential treatment? I'd say no.
That some of her friends, her brother Cody left that.
Melissa Mohon says she wants someone punished for her loss.
I would like to see the sheriff charged for not incarcerating him and charging him with, escaping from prison, and anyone else that was involved.
Fresh flowers sit beside Teresa Mohon's grave, a sign she's certainly not forgotten.
I don't want this happening to anybody else. I would never want anyone to go through what we've been through. Our lives have been totally destroyed.
Destroyed by a death even the sheriff says was unnecessary. So just who is responsible for allowing Troy Valentine to be out of jail 2 years ago? Was it the DA's office, investigator David Lozano, Sheriff Wayne Jones, or Warden Philip Hebert, who appears to have close ties to Troy Valentine? It's a question Melissa Mohon once answered as she continues to search for justice for Teresa. Troy Valentine is currently in Angola. He was sentenced to 50 years for negligent homicide for the death of Teresa Mohon.
Now, you mentioned many arrests. He was actually arrested again in 2008.
Yeah, that was one of the latest ones. And this story has so many turns. We really focused on the escape and how he wasn't charged. But we could have done a whole nother story of what happened in 2008. He's escaped. He goes into a drug facility program. He's arrested on simple burglary. He wishes to revoke his probation, and then just a month later, he's let out on $4,000 bail after serving good time. So it's a complicated web here. You know, when they went down for the escape in Plaquemines Parish to arrest him, Plaquemines Parish Sheriff's Office tells us they were caught off guard and surprised that the St. John Sheriff's Office didn't tell them they were coming down there to arrest Troy Valentine. They only called them when they ran into some problems trying to arrest Valentine.
And Teresa's grave wasn't the only grave in the front yard of the Mohons.
Yeah, I'm sure so many people's hearts are just for the Mohon family right now. And if unfortunately the story even gets worse, exactly 1 month before Teresa Mohon was killed in that car accident, another Mohon child, one of their boys, was killed in a car accident in Texas.
Wow.
So just an
Just
awful
never ends
story
for
for that
them.
family, I know.
All right, well, we've got some breaking news tonight. We want to bring you from the edge of the 7th Ward. Police are right now on the scene of a deadly